Hi, we're going to talk about exams today. I'm going to talk about taking exams, why we take them, maybe some ways to think about preparing for them. And really, when I say exams, I'm not so interested in the multiple choice, did you read the material, can you pick the right answer kind of exam. That's pretty straightforward, and we know why we ask those questions. Generally, we know that those questions are just designed as a straightforward, did you do the reading kind of question. I'm more interested in using exams to show something about yourself as a student, as a scholar, and the ways that professors think about exams. And in particular, this is for essay questions. I'm a writing teacher first, and so being a writing teacher means that I care very much about how students write and why they write and what they're trying to get out of that. The truth of the matter is, an exam question that asks you to do some writing is not asking you to do writing that's probably going to go down in all of history as being one of the best pieces of American literature ever written. An exam question is generally asking you to produce something right there on the spot. Nobody expects that what you're producing is going to be brilliant, but they do expect that it can show something about yourself as a writer, something about yourself as a thinker, something about yourself as a student, and how you're interacting with the materials in the course. So, why do we take exams? Well, there are many reasons why professors give exams, why exams are a thing in school. One of the reasons is because a professor feels like they need a marker between one segment of learning and another segment of learning that says, we're done with this, let me see if you learned it, and then we'll move on. Another reason why we take exams is because we need something for grades. We need to show that you've done the work for the class and you're ready to move on to another class. And we pretend like an exam can actually show us that. Another reason we take exams is because outsiders need some kind of marker. They need to be able to see that you've done the study and that you know the work. And we pretend like exams can show that. You know, exams can also be a valuable tool in helping you stop for a moment and reflect on what you've learned or what you haven't learned. They can also be a helpful tool in helping the professor see if you can take the material that you've learned and use it in a critical thinking way and use it in a thoughtful way to produce new material. And that's where the essay exam comes in. So an essay exam generally asks you a question, a prompt, and then it asks you to write. When it does that, what that question is asking you to do is to produce some material on your own in response to that question. Now, there are many ways to ask an essay question. Sometimes professors are asking a question where they expect you to give them the exact answer that they want, even if it's in your own language. They're expecting you to give the answer that they've given to you many times in class or in readings. If you don't respond with that answer, you're wrong. That's one way to ask the question. Another way to ask an essay question is to pose a problem for students and ask them to figure it out through writing. Another way to ask a question is to pose an open-ended question, ask students just to create something using materials in the class. Okay, so there are many different types of essay questions. And what matters is how your professor is going to read it, but also how you produce it. Generally, what you want to do when you write an essay question is to write clearly, presumably write in the language of the question that's being asked, to write clearly, to write in an organized way, to produce an answer that can both show that you know what you're talking about and that you know how to use the material. An essay exam question should never be a question where you just say, oh, I'm going to write something quickly and get over this, because clearly a professor is asking you an exam question for a reason. Let's take a look at a recent exam that I've given and think about what the questions there are asking. So here's a recent exam that I gave. And one of the reasons why I'm doing this video is because I was not entirely happy with the ways that the exam worked as far as points. Now, part of the problem here was I'm not a natural exam giver. This is not something I usually do in classes because I usually just ask people to write. So I think the points were off on this exam, and I'm taking some steps to fix that. But the exam itself was designed not to be too hard, not to make you stress out too much, but to ask you to show that you knew the material and show that you could use the material. So for instance, this is the multiple choice section. What is a course in the humanities supposed to cover? Human behavior through life stages? Well, no. Human cultures and productions within culture? That sounds possible. The apocalypse? No. Religion and myths? No. There's only one answer here that actually makes sense based on the things that we've talked about. We got a lot of those multiple choice questions, and people did fairly well on those questions because they weren't that hard. Let's move to the essay question. So I asked you to answer some essay questions, and in the instructions for the exam, I said, write about a paragraph, write enough to show that you know what you're talking about, and to show that you can answer this question. A lot of people didn't write a paragraph. Of course, it depends on what a paragraph means, but a lot of people just wrote a few words and moved on. Or a lot of people didn't really read the questions and just started responding. Some people read the questions and started thinking about an idea and then forgot what the question was. So here's a question. Tell me about one myth you have read so far this semester. What was the name and the story of the myth? Why would this text be considered a myth? Now, if you've been in my humanities course and you've been listening to the lectures and you've been doing the readings, you would know that the important part of this question was not really this, what was the name and the story of the myth. Obviously, you've been asked about that multiple times throughout the multiple choice questions. This is the important part of the question. Why would this text be considered a myth? If you think about the purpose of an essay exam, an essay question, I'm asking you to take the learning that you've done in the class, the materials of the class, and put those things together with your thinking to create an idea on why this text would be considered a myth. You would be amazed at how many people pretty much ignored that question. Or if they answered the question, just barely answered it, just gave one short sentence. That was the key to this question. Why would this text be considered a myth? So you were expecting to take the materials from the course and the question itself and create something. We can go through other questions here. Which text this semester have you found beautiful, artistic, entertaining, and emotional? What did you learn about the study of humanities by looking at that text? Most people spent time talking about why they really got into this text, but not what did they learn about the study of the humanities. Let's talk about some ways to go about developing an answer for an essay question like this. To develop an answer to an essay question like this, you generally want to think about, okay, what is the main question? The main question is, what did you learn about the study of the humanities by looking at this text? That means you got to find text. Let's just take one of our texts and say you want to talk about the statue of Lot's wife was an amazing and emotionally charged statue. And then you want to answer the second part of the question that can show us why the study of the humanities is, and now we got to figure out what we want to prove. What is the answer to this question? Why the study of the humanities is an emotionally engaging scholarly study, why the study of the humanities asks us to learn materials, engage with materials, and appreciate materials. There are many ways you could have answered this, but the point is that you come up with some answer, and then you write your paragraph, your response. You write an essay. What you really need to think about here is, what is the point of the question? What are you going to create in order to write and answer that question? And this requires you taking a little bit of time to think about this before you start writing. It's not enough just to say, I really love listening to Eddie Vedder sing Masters of War. What you got to think about is, what did you learn about the study of the humanities through that? This would be a good point to say, to give you the standard lesson that I gave to my writing courses when we talked about writing essay exams. And I don't do this anymore because we don't do essay exams as much in those courses anymore. But here's what I would say in my writing courses. In my writing courses, when I'm teaching essays, I tell students, avoid the 5-paragraph essay. It's a silly form. It's really confined. It doesn't allow you to be thoughtful and creative. It feels often fake and belabored. It doesn't sound real. However, in a setting like this, when you are trying to produce an answer in a very short amount of time that sounds like you know what you're talking about, a 5-paragraph essay form can be very helpful. So if we take Lot's wife and the study of the humanities, and we think, okay, what is this showing us about the study of humanities? One, humanities forces us to look at art we may not otherwise see. And I'm going to change this just writing-wise. Invites us rather than forces us. 2, humanities asks us to interpret art. 3, humanities lets us see how culture is connected, because Lot's wife does the famous story in a sculpture. If these are our 3 reasons, then our thesis, if we decided to use a thesis, our 5-paragraph essay thesis would be the statue of Lot's wife shows us that the humanities invites us to explore art, interpret art, and to see how culture is connected. Let's change that a little bit, do a little bit of revision. Different cultures are connected. What I've got here is a thesis statement for a 5-paragraph essay, or a 5-point paragraph for an essay question. And I could write this pretty quickly and pretty convincingly to answer this question. I would then start to write an introduction statement, talk about the first point, exploring art, what it was like to look at Lot's wife. The second point, interpreting art, what it was like to try to figure that out. And the third point, how different cultures are connected, talk about the Bible story with the sculpture. Answering it in this way takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of effort, but it allows me to develop a much more satisfying and sophisticated answer that a professor will look at and say, wow, this person got it, full credit. There are many things you can do to do a better, to be able to do an effective job on an essay, on an exam. One of those is to just slow down and ask, what is the professor asking and what can I produce? What do I know in order to be able to produce this? One of the problems, I think, with the exam that I just graded, and sometimes in general, is that students think that they're exposing themselves to material. They think that they're taking a class when really they're not studying enough. They're not looking at the material closely enough. Or in the case of an online class, and since we're almost going to be totally online in the fall, and right now we are. In the case of an online class, they think they can sometimes just show up, click in, and do something without having looked at any of the other materials. And it was pretty clear to me, both reading through the multiple choice questions and the essay exam in this last exam, that some people didn't really watch the lectures, or if they watched them, they hit play and weren't paying attention to it. This is a class. You do have to pay attention. You are supposed to get something out of it. You're supposed to learn and grow through the class and show that you can do this work before you can get a grade. And if you're not taking that time, if you're just logging in to show that you logged in and you're typing a few words in and then you're hitting play on a lecture, but then you're not really paying much attention to anything that you're doing, that's not really doing the college stuff. The college stuff takes more effort than that. Taking an exam is one thing. Taking an essay exam is a set of skills that you gotta learn, but paying attention to what you're doing and caring about what it looks like when you do those things, what it looks like for your professor to read it, or what it looks like for other people in the class to see it, caring about that is part of learning how to do college. It's part of learning how to do the world, being a citizen in the world. You have to be able to present yourself in your best light so that others can see you doing the work. Okay, that's it for today. I'll be recording another lecture for humanities on Friday, and I will be posting that. That will be more on the subject for the week. Take care.